Welcome back to another episode of Patrox Radio. I'm your host, Patrox, and I hope you all are having a Merry Christmas. But if you're like me and like to keep up to date with knowing what's wrong in the world, even on the happiest day, I have a small list of things I felt were relevant for us to keep aware of then. Before I talk about the United States, let me use a few of these articles that I found from different parts of the world and describe what all has been going on this past week in protests and in just tragedies. For the first one today, I want to talk about Paris right now because according to CNN, police fired tear gas to quell protesters outside of deadly Paris shooting. This was Friday. Um, the French police said on Friday they fired tear gas amid clashes with agitated protesters outside a Kurdish community center in the heart of Paris, where a gunman earlier killed three people and injured four others in an attack with possible racist underpinnings. All three people killed inside and near the Kurdish cultural center Ahmet Kaya on Rue de Dejin. I have no idea how to pronounce that word. They were Kurds. The sender lawyer confirmed to CNN. The suspected attacker, a 69-year-old Frenchman with a long criminal record, has been arrested. He was not part of any far-right groups monitored by the police. French Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin told journalists at the scene, quote, the suspect, clearly wanted to take it out on foreigners, unquote. Dar- I'm sorry. I'm trying to read this verbatim, and it's just looking at the picture underneath with the protest and fire of what happened. It's just it's hard to want to talk normally, so I apologize. But this little event also sparked its own little incident later on yesterday on Christmas Eve. Clashes between protesters and police have broken out in central Paris on Saturday as members of the local Kurdish community took to the streets to call for justice following Friday's deadly shooting at a Kurdish cultural center. The skirmishes were ongoing and are taking place in the near area near Place de la République in the heart of the French capital, not far from the Ahmet Kaya Kurdish Cultural Center, the site of Friday's shooting. And it's just crazy, to see that even across the pond they still have things to deal with. You know, quote, uh, to avoid damages at the Place de la République and people getting injured, we, the CDKF, known as the Kurdish Democratic Council in France, uh, have to put an end to the march, unquote. Spokesperson Baravan Firat told BFM TV on Saturday. I'm assuming that's a French news site. Adding that from now on, the group will no longer be held responsible for the actions of the protesters. Uh, yeah, this was a march that was originally planned by this group, it seems, and things just are getting out of hand because people don't want to deal with immigrants, and that sounds familiar. Sounds scary and familiar. Sorry to use that term twice, but yeah, it's just true. You know, in Sri Lanka, I found a little incident that kind of caught me by surprise. Uh, According to Reuters, Sri Lanka's military is holding a Christmas carnival at the seafront side of an anti government protest that forced the country's previous president to flee and quit his office earlier this year. Thousands marched on Sri Lanka's largest city and set up a tented protest camp in April amid anger at the government's handling of a severe economic crisis. Protesters named the site Gota Gogama, a dig at former presidents Baya Rajapaksa. There you go. I think I said that right. Who was forced to resign in July. This week, Sri Lanka's powerful military converted the site adjacent to the presidential office into a Christmas-themed carnival ground with a large artificial Christmas tree, a bus featuring carol singers and dog shows. Sri Lanka descended into its worst economic crisis in 7 decades this year as its foreign exchange reserve ran dry, leading to shortages of essentials, including food and fuel, which stoked widespread unrest, culminating in Rajapaksa's exit. Uh, Pakyasathi Saravanamutu, I'm guessing I'm saying that right. I'm probably butchering this name. Executive director of Colombo based think tank Center for Policy Alternatives, said the celebrations at the former protest site were a show of strength by the government of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Wickremesinghe, I'm guessing. God, these. I'm sorry. As an American, I'm stupid when it comes to having any context of how to pronounce these names. So I apologize. So Ranil, who took over after his predecessor quit. Quote, first and foremost, I want to establish that it is very much in control and that this was the headquarters of the great uh, Aragalaya, yeah, Aragalaya, Aragalaya. Uh, they have reclaimed the space, unquote, Ranil said, referring to the name of the protest movement. Oh, okay. Brigadier Nalantha Primaratne, a military spokesperson, said that the location was chosen because it was an area where Sri Lankans gathered during the festive season. There is no other special reason, he said. Sure. Sri Lanka reached a preliminary deal with the IMF for $2.9 billion bailout in September, and Mr. Wick over here has warned tough economic reforms are necessary. But activist Thiridu Uduwagar, that's a hard name. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go with Thiridu because I feel like you can pronounce that. Thiridu said to Mr. Wick over here, administration to the Ranil administration did not have popular support to hold the celebration at Gotago Gama. Quote, the people will certainly continue the fight until we get rid of the government, unquote, he said. So, let me try to condense what that said. The TLDR is that it seems that the new government held by this Ranil fellow seems to be holding, festivities with the claim of for no other reason than to enjoy the season. Although a lot of protesters feel it seems the sentiment is that it is used as a way to try to quell the protest and calm everyone down, which they seem adamant to not want to do. And I respect them for that. I find that very honorable in their fight. Now, I do not understand the full context of Sri Lanka. I do want to make that very clear. And if there is context that will change my opinion, I will change it then once I find out what it is. But that will be the case for everything. Unless I say I'm very well aware. Uh, Now I got two other cases, one that I found in Berlin and one that I found in the UK, both of which seem a little silly. I'm not gonna lie, it feels a little silly. Let me get to it. Let's go to Germany. Um, According to Sky News, Sky News, an activist group called Last Generation said that they wanted to highlight that Germany is so far only seeing the tip of the climate catastrophe happening around the world. To demonstrate this, they cut off the very tip of a Christmas tree that was being held in front of Berlin's Brandenburg Gate. And they also hung a banner that says, this is only the tip of the Christmas tree. Very on the nose, and I love it. I think it was smart. Criticizing such protests, however, is the German counselor Olaf Scholz. He has called out the activist show as a bit of creativity, but I couldn't find anything else directly uh, expressing more of his opinion. But this little stunt was really just two guys went up on a cherry picker into this little plaza area, the Pariser Platz, which drew up a small crowd in which they just hoisted themselves up to cut off the tip of the tree. I did not see any reports of arrests, fines, or, anything of the sort. So, just a little stunt. I thought it was a little cool and cute, and I would like to throw it in, you know. But if we go over to the United Kingdom, we have an interesting story by the Daily Mail about urgent review of King Charles's safety is underway currently because they are afraid of protests on Christmas Day, which I personally do not care to check out right now. I don't care because what happened is that twice in the past 2 months, eggs have been thrown at the king. His security detail is concerned that there will be a bunch of protesters on Christmas Day. They are reviewing them since the egg incident happened twice because, of course, reasonably they understand that if you can throw an egg, things can get far worse. That it's. I'm making. I'm trying to make this reasonable and rational because if you were able to just throw an egg, you're able to throw a grenade, and that I'm guessing that's the mindset. If you can do something so harmless as a way to demonstrate, then there is legitimate fear that something worse can happen, and they're trying to prevent that. I do understand that. At the same breath, fuck the monarchy. Y'all need to be done with your monarchy to begin with. Uh, a little insight I was able to dig up is that earlier this month, one of the incidences was caused by a man who was eventually arrested for common assault following the disturbance on St. George's Square in Luton. Um, it says, though Charles the King, 74 years old, appeared to be unfazed by the incident and quickly resumed shaking hands with members of the public after being moved to a different area. Um, he was literally just pelted with an egg, which was actually caught like mid camera that I saw in the pictures. It was pretty funny. Um, 4 weeks before that, though, another man was arrested for throwing an egg at the king and queen consort during a visit to York. The royal couple had just arrived in the city on November 9th to unveil a statue in honor of the late queen at York Minster when a figure in the crowd threw 4 eggs, all of which missed. And this is going to get interesting, according to this guy's little plan he cocked up. Uh, where was I? All of which missed. This month, a student was charged with threatening behavior after the eggs were thrown at the king during a walkabout in York, and revealed he intends to ask the monarch to give evidence in his defense. The Crown Prosecution Service said that it has authorized North Yorkshire Police to charge Patrick Thelwell following the incident on November 9th. The 23-year-old will appear at York Magistrates Court on January 20th next year charged with threatening behavior contrary to Section 4 of the Public Order Act of 1986. Mr. Thelwell said, quote, I am charged with Section 4 of the Public Order Act. My plea hearing is on the 20th of January. I will plead not guilty, of course. The charge relates to someone feeling fear of imminent physical violence. The question is, did the king fear imminent violence? So I don't know how to get an answer to that without getting a statement from him. Asked it, unquote. Yeah, so that's his plan. He's wanting to get the king to testify against him, which is interesting if it actually happens. I don't think it's going to happen. Let's be real. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to go through with the charges anyways, despite him, which is wrong in my opinion. But with the level of severity that this brings on and the incident, unless he's like given for some reason life in prison or whatever equivalent charges they may have over there. I don't know. I don't know British law. I don't know, the penal code over there. I don't have context. So I may keep my eye out just for my own curiosity, but I thought that was interesting to hear his reasoning. Um, Asked if he would also call the king to give live evidence, he replied, quote, these are questions for my solicitor, I think. It should be fun, unquote. Former Met Police Chief, Superintendent, and head of the Royal Prosecution Unit, Di Davies, told the Mirror that the right to peaceful protest must be defended, but that officers need to have a razor sharp focus, unquote. I like that because you have a police officer in a rare occasion I'm seeing is first saying that the right to protest must be defended. I love that. But this is in Britain. This is in America, so different context maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Where was I? He also said, quote, there's no magic solution to this pattern of attacks or protests, but intelligence and exit strategies are the most important factor. The egg incidences show the vulnerability of the royals, but it's happened before and will happen again. The key is to make sure that these incidences do not spiral. Now, this sounds like a rare police officer that has a really good head on his shoulder. He understands his responsibilities, he understands his jobs, but also understands how people will react and that people have a right to protest like this. And you know what? I can commend it. If for knowing nothing else about this man, Di Davy seems to have a good head on his shoulder. So yeah, good to you, Di. Um, Now to the sad parts, the things I was hoping to avoid, but trouble in the states, trouble in our backyards, guys. Let's talk about it. You know, December 21st in Chesterfield, Missouri. A drag queen Christmas was held at a place called The Factory and was welcome to all ages. In its eighth year, the popular drag show featured contestants from RuPaul's Drag Race, intends to entertain and cheer people up during the holiday season. Quote, it's so full of joy and happiness. It really is supposed to be a safe place where we can all enjoy and come together as a community to feel like we belong, unquote, said Robert Fisher, an attendee and LGBTQ plus advocate with promo. Quote, putting drag queens with Christmas is like slapping God in the face, unquote, said Tony Kozich, one of the protesters. No, you just need to shut the fuck up, man. For the context of my opinion on Christmas, first off, it's a secular holiday that was a Christianized holiday that was a pagan holiday, you know. And the more and more you go to the roots, you realize Christmas was a political stunt to pull pagans away from their beliefs, is what it really was at the end of the day. And then capitalists came in because they didn't want protesters yelling at them, telling them how they've been fucking up. So they encouraged them to buy gifts and whatnot to make them more money. So yeah, a secular holiday that was a Christianized holiday that was a pagan adaptation, if you will. So this guy needs to just shut the fuck up about Christmas like that. Possible lies are that Chesterfield Mayor Bob Nation, yes, that's his real name, Bob Nation, decided to increase the age requirements to 18 and up, citing violations of multiple local ordinance on what's acceptable for minors. I don't believe that. I don't buy that for a fucking second. Because never, when I investigated this, could I find any of the, violations of local ordinances or anything like that. I couldn't find it. That's just his quote. Uh, Again, quote, in no way is this meant to disrespect or put down the LGBTQ plus community, or in no way is this meant to restrict drag shows, unquote. But that's exactly what you're doing, Nation said. Quote, those are legal entities. It's just the content that we were told might occur. We thought we should suggest limiting the age limit, and the promoters readily did that, unquote. Shortly after discussions began with the promoters, Senator Bill Agel, representing St. Charles County, sent a letter to the mayor encouraging the change to, quote, protect minors, quote, from the illegal pornographic material. I want to know what is illegal about a drag show. What about it is explicitly pornographic? Do you just for anybody who doesn't have a firm understanding of what drag shows in its entirety is just gender performance. It's out there. It's very dramatic. It's very hyperbolic, but it's nothing but gender performance, which is what we do all the fucking time. This is our everyday lives, even if you don't think so. If you ever uttered the words or ideas, a man should be this or a man should do that, something along those lines, that's gender performance. Because you're saying that a man has to live by a certain principle in order to be considered a man, and in doing so, you are performing to the public to let them know, hey, I am a man because I am doing X, Y, or Z. That is the whole point of drag shows, is to put a fucking spin on the idea and say, hey, let a man dress like a woman, let him have fun. The idea of sexualizing it is inherently different from saying, let me act like a girl. Even if you are either fully trans and are a girl, or if you are comfortably a cis man and just like dressing up and dancing because you like feeling unrestricted and unburdened by societal measures, that's okay. Nothing about that is illegal. And having kids show up to that is not inherently wrong. What matters is providing context. What matters is having a greater picture. And if this show was open to all ages, I'm willing to believe that they left these sexual performances at home and were not intending to do anything extreme or out there. And I'm sure they had a lot more modest costumes than these opposers are trying to give the impression of. And I'm sorry, as being friends with drag queens, this gets under my skin. This irritates the hell out of me. It really fucking does. But let's get back to it. If you can't tell, this article and the next one I'm going to read are from Fox News. Just letting you know. You know. Uh, it gained attention from multiple organizations, sparking a conversation on what constitutes sexual obscenity. Protesters and counter protesters came out in droves shouting their opinions at opposing sides in the parking lot outside the venue. Quote, there should be no obscene material or performance, period, and it's beyond me that anyone can book a performance like this, unquote, said Don DeBlaze. Well, Don, you're a fucking idiot because you don't know what the fuck you're even talking about. Quote, they are full of hate for a group that they know nothing about, and it affects them in no way, unquote, said Nikki Taylor. Quote, it's disgusting, unquote. Nikki, I couldn't have said it better. You are 100% on the ball with that one. One arrest was made outside the venue, but I couldn't find out anything in particular about it. But at the end of the night, the show still went on. So there was some good news, But let's take it over to Knoxville on December 22nd. There was another drag show event that went underway. It's just crazy. According to a man who led the protest, one pastor Ken Peters, quote, I think they want American culture to be sexually immoral. The left has their own religion. No, we don't. And their religion is not Christianity. Well, you're right about that with me personally. I'm an Asporian. I'm not a Christian. Uh, just like we would want to raise up kids to love Jesus, no, not all of us do. Love God, not all of us do. Not all of us even believe in Him. And love country. I do love my country, and I think my country is full of fucking idiots. They want kids to love their culture and their lifestyle. I don't want them to love my culture and lifestyle. I want them to not feel scared or be sheltered away from these things because they're not inherently bad. They're not inherently problematic. If a kid winds up loving it, great. We have another fan. But if not, I don't want them to develop an opinion that they're going to be, scarred by just being around a drag queen, because that's not what's going to happen. That's only going to happen if you make them think that that's going to happen, and the second they do, they overreact, and then they say, oh, it was him, when all that happened was that the kid self-imploded by what you said. It doesn't make sense to me, you know. Getting back to his quote, so I think it's all part of the culture war. Get them when they're young. It's like us having Sunday school. This dude is fucking loony, let me tell you. The pastor spearheading a protest against a Christmas drag show in Knoxville, Tennessee, advertised for all ages, warned that such events are indicative of increasing anti Christian sentiment in the U.S. I don't think so inherently, although personally at the same time, I'm not against anti Christian sentiments because there's so much of the evangelist and fundy movements that are going on within Christian circles that are tainting a lot. They are destroying a lot. I came from that. I came out of that to be who I am now. So I am not against the idea of an anti Christian, sentiment, but that's not what I'm inherently trying to foster, and most people on the left are not inherently trying to foster that unless you are like specifically doing nothing but like atheist content, I can imagine, and even then I consider that a bit of a stretch in this definition, even though I would get it. You know, the drag show was not the agenda during the most recent meeting uh, in the Knoxville City Council, but several residents still showed up to voice their opposition to the event, according to a local CBS affiliate, WVLT. Quote, "You will see nothing at a drag show that you wouldn't see on Dancing with the Stars, a child's pageant, or a cheerleader at a football game," unquote. 100% true. This was a quote by one of the performers who showed up to the emotionally charged public forum maintained. I did not get a name for this performer. I am sorry. Another Knoxville resident who attended displayed a replica of a spine. I love this. A replica of a spine to a city leader to the city leadership during this comments. Quote, "I brought this to remind you what a spine looks like. Grow one," unquote, he said. The Tennessee Theater released a statement from Executive Director Becky Hancock earlier this week advising parental discretion after the venue received complaints about the event initially being advertised for all ages. Quote, "We also have received a small number of complaints about the show being advertised for all ages," unquote, Hancock wrote in part. Quote, "To clarify, an earlier version of the marketing copy provided by the promoter that is renting the theater for the event included the phrase, and we removed it. The approved description of the show is posted currently in the event calendar listing at TennesseeTheater.com. The current description notes that parental discretion is advised, which could be used for many types of content or subject matter," unquote. Hancock further advised anyone who does not approve of the show's material to avoid attending. Thank you! Common sense answers that nobody wants to hear. See, because if they wanted to actually just not be exposed to it, they would just not go. That's why we constantly say this isn't an attack on Christian fundamentalism. This is an attack on queer culture. This is an attack on LGBTQ plus individuals. This is an attack on the left, and the right has some fucking Christian persecution complex that they got going on. It's fucking ridiculous. You know, quote, "I strongly believe, both personally and as the director of this organization, that decisions on what children should or should not see be left up to their parents or guardians," unquote, said Hancock, who added that the theater, quote, "is proud to offer a wide variety of events, entertainment, and experiences for the public to consider and attend if they so choose," unquote. Peters, who said that he believes drag, quote, "is not good for the community in general," unquote, I don't agree with that, argued that allowing minors at such events is symptomatic of a deeper problem emerging in American culture. Sorry, Peters, you are fucking crazy, and we're about to see a little bit more of that. Quote, "When you invite kids or allow kids into adult-style entertainment, first off, it's not inherently adult-style entertainment. Unless you wanted to use the argument that it requires a level of critical reasoning and understanding that kids may not have developed as your scale of adult, I could agree with that, but only really that." Getting back to his quote, where was it? Should be set to the parents of guardian. Where were you? Ken Peters, come on, man. Here we go. He said, "I think once we stopped drawing a line on kids, we enter into a dangerous period in our country. We open up kids to an adult world that they're too young for." No, this is a sheltering kids argument, and I don't believe in sheltering kids. So for me, this is about loving our culture. I love my culture, and you're attacking it. So this is about loving our culture, loving our nation. I love my nation, but I think my nation's fucking stupid. And keeping kids as innocent as possible in this day and age. Wrong. I don't believe you should keep kids as innocent and pure as possible because a lot of those lines also usually imply some level of ignorance, and I don't believe that kids should be ignorant. I don't believe that. I think that doesn't prepare them for the future that they need to go into. I don't think that, keeping kids as innocent as possible does anything but hinder them. If you want to advance and help kids in this day and age, sheltering them is not the answer. It is the problem. I'm sorry, I don't get it. Get it. Let me get back to the article. A drag queen talked to a child in the crowd at Christmas themed event in Austin, Texas. Peters said that there has been huge pushback in the Knoxville community about the drag show, and he pointed blame to Democratic Knoxville Mayor India Kincannon. Quote, "This is the most conservative area in one of our most conservative states," said Peters. East Tennessee is like a pocket of conservatism in the United States, but the problem is you have the downtown area of Knoxville and a mayor who is a leftist, and she will not enforce good laws. Shut the fuck up, Peters. I'm sorry, you're just a fucking idiot. Oh, God, I don't even want to dissect that one. The drag show has reportedly prompted backlash from Knoxville residents. The pastor referenced obscenity laws on the books in Tennessee that some would argue would apply to such events, especially if minors are present. He believes the mayor of the city, which boasts on its website of working with the LGBTQ plus community to promote, quote, "a safe, accountable, inclusive, and welcoming community so all Knoxville residents feel represented, respected, and appreciated," unquote, and support such events. Kincannon's office did not respond to Fox News Digital's request for a comment by the time of publication, but it released an earlier statement about the controversy. Quote, "Part of what makes Knoxville a great place to live and raise a family is its cultural diversity. Having many options to enjoy entertainment of your choosing," unquote, Kincannon said, according to a local ABC affiliate, WATE. Quote, "Variety of diversity are good. If someone is not to your taste, or if something, my bad, if something is not to your taste, don't buy a ticket. Everyone should find the entertainment that gives them joy." And I fucking agree with that. Could not have said it better myself. I need to do some research on this Mayor Kincannon, India Kincannon, because she sounds like she has a decent head on her shoulders, at least. And I'm glad she's willing to still stick up and defend for, the drag shows and the LGBTQ community as a whole, and defend them up there. Because, yeah, the South is full of a bunch of idiot conservatives that don't know what, basic facts of our life that deviate from how they grew up. And they're too scared to embrace or understand it even in the slightest. And so they attack, attack, attack. Coming from a family that does that still very subtly, it hurts. But luckily, my family has seen something of a light, and it seems like they're slowing down. But I can only imagine if you go to churches like these, how much more crazy you got to be sounding. When your leader starts to ramble off like a cult leader, I can only imagine, what the rest of the congregation is like. So let's end it off with, unfortunately, one tragic story that happened earlier today on Christmas. We're going to Colorado for this one. According to The Guardian, police in Thornton, Colorado say they found two adults dead after investigating a suspected murder-suicide at a Jehovah's Witnesses Kingdom Hall on Christmas morning. Officers in the suburb north of Denver tweeted at 10:30 a.m. Sunday that they were investigating a homicide at the gathering place, but that, quote, "there was no active threat," unquote. Thornton police later said that the fatalities were a married couple and former members of the Kingdom Hall congregation. Quote, "An adult female was shot and killed by an adult male, who then shot and killed himself," unquote, authorities said in a statement. The identities of the couple have not yet been released. Quote, "The investigation is still active, witnesses being interviewed, scene being examined," unquote, Thornton police said on Twitter. Quote, Still no known threats to the Thornton community," unquote. In addition to the couple dead at the Kingdom Hall, a hazardous material team was investigating what they described to be, quote, "a suspicious device," unquote, believed to be connected to the murder-suicide, authorities say. Luis Sanchez, a witness who lives across the street, told the Denver Post that he heard 2 gunshots this morning. He said he looked outside to see a woman lying on the ground outside. It's very sad. It's Christmas, he said. According to a Fox News report, the attacker threw a type of explosive known as a Molotov cocktail into the building. Reports of further explosions followed. Fire services had also reportedly headed to the scene in response to reports of a blaze at the building. Authorities have said little about those details beyond noting the presence of the hazardous materials team at the Kingdom Hall. Police have not released information about the suspected killer. They asked the public to avoid the area. Yeah, and that's it. This has been crazy. This has been one hell of a week so far. And on Christmas too, to have such a tragedy. Luckily, it seems to have been contained to only a couple and not an entire congregation getting burned down. So, silver linings. But yeah, I felt it was important that even on Christmas, that we stay hyper aware and vigilant of all the trauma and tragedies going around us. Because even on Christmas, the happiest days of our lives, we can't avoid this crap. We can't avoid hate. We can't avoid idiocy. We can't avoid trauma. We can't avoid the climate. There's a lot we can't avoid. Now, I hope I didn't bring any of you down with this, and I hope that a lot of you at least get encouraged to be a little more hyper aware of your areas and surroundings. But at the same time, I hope you guys had enjoyed your family, had enjoyed the holiday festivities, enjoyed your eggnog, and enjoyed your pies and cakes like my family does. And if you're from the South, I really hope you guys enjoyed a barbecue Christmas, because that is the best thing in the world. But I would be rambling off if I don't end this here now. So, let's enjoy the new year as it comes in, guys. I love you all, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Have a great one, guys. Know that Mama Terra loves you. Bye-bye.